Welcome to another episode of Tireless Tracker, where I, Ryan O'Loughlin, will be taking you on my journey through the Legacy format to the Eternal Weekend Legacy Champions this October in Pittsburgh. If you've been following me, you'll know that I'm a bit lost in the woods. That's a term that I got from Stuart Taylor from the Legacy Breakfast podcast, which if you don't listen to, you should, because it's the best Magic podcast there is, hands down. That's a term that means that I don't know what deck I want to play competitively. So over the past couple episodes, I've talked about lots and lots of decks. And during the last episode, I talked about the Mono Blue Delver deck that I played at last week's Four Horsemen Game Night event. And then I played a spicy little number from GP Las Vegas at our monthly Monday Proxy Legacy event. Let me show you guys that list. This is the quote-unquote Sultai control list, as Wizard likes to refer to it as. The meta breakdown from the source calls it Buglands. I don't really feel like either name is appropriate. I think that there's a very decent chance that the creator of the list has his own name for it, and we'll just maybe never know. Actually, I could probably look the guy up on Facebook and ask. But anyways, it's basically, it is a bug control deck, but it has a crop rotation Life from the Loam package with a lot of utility lands, including but not limited to Thespian Stage, Dark Depths combo, a Cephalid Coliseum for card draw and discard, a Cabal Pit for removal, a Caracas as a utility land, a single Bajuka Bog for graveyard removal, and of course Wastelands, and also I guess color fixing. But it's spicy. Like, it also plays the intuition package, so you can come up with intuition piles that are like, instead of getting 3 Wastelands, you could get Wasteland, Life from the Loam, or if you just need removal, you just get Cabal Pit and Life from the Loam, and it doesn't matter what the third card is, because if they put Life from the Loam in your graveyard, and then you can just dredge it back and cast it to get back the Cabal Pit. It's pretty crazy. And then it plays like your standard like creature package minus a Goyf for bug with a Deathrite Shaman, Snapcaster Mage, Leovold. It's got Planeswalkers. You get to play Jace and Liliana. There's also Baleful Strix, regular control cards, Force of Will, Abrupt Decay, Toxic Deluge, Maelstrom Pulse, Single Ponder, and Brainstorm. There is a Pernicious Deed also in the list, which is very spicy. It does a lot of things I want to do. It plays fair. It's in colors I like. It plays Deathrite Shaman. It has basic lands. I really like playing with basic lands. It has lots of hard answers instead of soft answers. I'm not personally a big fan of cards like Daze or Spell Pierce. Not that I won't play them, but I'm more of a fan of having hard answers to things like Abrupt Decay and Maelstrom Pulse. That's just my preference of play. And then the sideboard is basically like combo central. Invasive Surgery, Flusterstorm, Collective Brutality, 2 Surgical Extractions, 3 Thoughtseize, like a whole bunch of combo protection. And then some more cards to shore up your fair matches, like Garruk Relentless, which is a card I'm always excited to cast. Guys like Survival of the Fittest meets Recurring Nightmare on a stick that makes wolves. It's a really fun card to play. I killed somebody with the ultimate once. It was a lot of fun. But anyways, so I played this at the monthly Monday event, and I did 2-1, lost in the finals to one Mr. Sam Houck, very nice guy. And I like the deck a lot. I 2-0'd Belcher and 2-0'd Mono Red Sneak Attack, and then got 0-2'd by Rug Delver, like I said. The deck felt good. Even the 2 games I lost, I felt like I could have won those if I'd known the deck better. I decided that the deck is good and I like it, but it's probably a little too hard to play to learn in 4 months to be competitive at the event. So, like I said, been a tad lost in the woods, and my deadline to choose a deck was actually the 20th, 2 days ago. This is being recorded on the June 22nd, and I set that deadline for myself to choose what deck I would be on so that I could have a solid 4 months of testing. And after checking out the information from GP Las Vegas, I have made a decision. But first, let's go over the top 64 meta for GP Las Vegas. That's not it. That's it. There we go. So our good friends over at The Source were able to do a little hunting and get us the top 64 decks, not the lists, but they were able to come up with what the top 64 players were playing. Unfortunately, Wizards only gave us the top 16 deck lists. You've seen at times that they will give us the top 64, top 100, or at least a day 2 meta breakdown, which is all really important information, and we didn't get any of that, unfortunately. But anyways, here's the top 64, starting with everything that had at least 2 or more copies. And you can tell right at the top, there's a huge difference between number 1 and number 2, Grixis Delver with 11 copies. This was a Grixis Delver tournament, and with 2 copies of Rug Delver, 2 copies of Blue-Red Delver, and 4 copies of Bug Delver, that puts it to 19 copies of Delver, and that means about 1/3, slightly less than 1/3, 19 out of 64 of the top 64 was on Delver. So, wow, baby. That's a whole lot of Delver secrets with the flying and the buggies and the 3/2s and the turning sideways and the blue and the, oh man, that's a lot of Delver. Going down, tied at second place, Show and Tell with 5 players, that's not a big surprise, but Bant Deathblade, wow, that's out of left field. We've had some people talking about Blue-White Stoneblade, Esper Stoneblade, or Esper Deathblade, but there hasn't been a ton of people talking about Bant Deathblade. I think there was a guy who top 8'd the MKM event right after the ban with it. For those of you who aren't aware, essentially Bant Deathblade is Esper Deathblade, but more green, whereas Esper Deathblade is more black. So it's like, this is Bant Stoneblade with like a black splash for Deathrite Shaman, whereas Esper Deathblade is Esper Stoneblade with a green splash for Deathrite Shaman. Small but important differences. Basically, it is a Deathrite Shaman Noble Hierarch True Name deck that could or couldn't play Leovold and has Disruption and Stoneforge Mystic. So there's that. 5 copies of Elves, which everybody expected Elves after the top banning, because bye-bye Terminus. 4 Bug Delver, 3 Miracles, so none of those guys penetrated the top 16. I don't know if any of them made it, so no top 8, no top 16. I don't know if any of them made it into top 32. So apparently that deck didn't do as well as some people were expecting it to. 3 4-color Loam or Aggro Loam, 3 Death and Taxes, one of which one. 2 Check Pile, 2 Food Chain, 2 Black-Red Reanimator, 2 Black-Green Depths or Turbo Depths, 2 Lands, 2 Rug Delver, 2 Blue-Red Delver, and 2 Grixis Delver. On Death and Taxes real quick, so most of the Legacy personalities out there were expecting Death and Taxes to not make top 8, let alone win, or to even do well. And the fact that it won is actually not an argument against that. They weren't necessarily wrong. It's just the deck overperformed based on the number of people who were doing well. So only 3 people played the deck into the top 64, and one of them overperformed so much that they won the whole event. Love Death and Taxes. That's awesome. But yeah, that's just interesting. So let's go ahead and look at the single. We have 1 Blue-White Stoneblade, 1 Jeskai Stoneblade, 1 Blue-Black Death Shadow, 1 Eldrazi, 1 Infect, 1 Aluren, 1 Merfolk, and 1 Buglands, which is the list we already went over. So this meta, looking at this meta makes me want to Cascade. It makes me want to stay on Shardless Bug. When Top got banned, I thought, well, there went my best matchup that was also the best deck in the format. Maybe I should play something else. Or maybe I shouldn't. Because this top 64 is about 1/3 Delver And Delver's a really good matchup for Shardless Bug. Looking at this list, there's also no Storm, which is a really bad matchup for Shardless. Not saying that Storm is bad. I think Ant still has a chance of being the best deck in the format post top banning, but for some reason it didn't show up. Maybe because there weren't a lot of people playing it, or the people who were playing it weren't proficient with it, because it is probably the hardest deck to play. Anyways, it just didn't show up. Bad matchups here that I see for Shardless Bug, Show and Tell, but that's just something you have to be prepared to play all the time when you're playing Shardless Bug. Also, Elves and Death and Taxes are not good matchups, but I'm very comfortable in those matchups, and I'm okay tuning my lists to play against both of them with main deck copies of things like Toxic Deluge and Maelstrom Pulse. Aside from that, and lands, but no deck I play can ever beat lands. Aside from that, I really like all of these. Like, I want to play Shardless Bug against Delver decks, against Deathblade decks, against Stoneblade decks, against these blue-red based control decks. It feels really good. Reanimator's not a good matchup, but I tend to play 4 Leyline of the Voids in my list, so I think Shardless Agent and I are going to be back on the town, working on a new list. I'm going to bring it to you guys during the next episode, and that's what we'll be talking about then. Thanks for watching.